In the midst of their coaching search, Grambling has created a committee, and one member of that committee stands out more than the rest. Oh, yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. And these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. And that's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. We wrap up today's episode with a two-part around North Carolina Central. One, Devin Smith is one of the latest Eagles to enter the transfer portal. Let's look at that move in isolation. And then afterwards, look at why North Carolina Central will be okay despite how many transfer portal departures they've had. However, we're going to kick it off in the SWAC. We're going to kick it off down there at Grambling because the Grambling Tigers are looking for a new head coach in the wake of firing Hugh Jackson. And they've created a committee in order to find that coach. And I'll tell you one person in particular, and I probably should spread it out to two. However, this one stands out a tad bit more than the second person I would name. That's Myles Crawley. Myles Crawley, the starting Grambling quarterback, is a part of the coaching committee, right? And that's what they're calling the team that is looking for the new head coach. They're not obviously not coaching one by one, but it's a committee to find the coach. You have Doug Williams and Shaq Harris as advisors to that committee. And then on the committee, you have Dr. Bobby Burks, who is the faculty athletic representative, Myles Crawley, Grambling State football student athlete / offensive representative. Then you have Javon Carter, who is the Grambling State student athlete and defensive representative, Coach Nakia Hall, which is the head softball coach, Edwin Mason, alumni representative, Dr. Rudolph Ellis, vice president for student affairs, and then Randy Himes, who's a football alumni representative. So all of those names, right? I named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people on that committee, and then 2 more advisors. There's only 2 guys that I really want to point out in this, and that's Myles Crawley and Javon Carter. Those are the 2 players who are a part of this committee. With no disrespect intended to Mr. Carter, I think that a lot of people look at the quarterback first, whether that's coaches, whether that's fans, whether that's teams. I think that a lot of times your leader of your team is your quarterback if he is on that esteem, right? Like if we're putting him on that shelf, then he is the leader of the team. And I do believe that Grambling has put Myles Crawley on that shelf. And this is just a kind of a reaffirmation of that. Carter is the defensive leader. That's what this tells me. It tells me Crawley leads the offense. Carter leads the defense. Cool. But because he plays quarterback, I want to focus in on Crawley for this conversation. From the outside looking in, this reaffirms not only Grambling's commitment to Crawley, but then also Crawley's commitment to Grambling. This is only from the outside looking in. Those within Grambling, those within Crawley's camp, Crawley himself, they've all had that conversation, I'm sure. When Hugh Jackson leaves, somebody who recruited you in, the conversation is likely to be had. Hey, how do you feel about Grambling? Do you want to be here? I'm sure he had to have that conversation with himself and those who are close to him. Do I want to be here? Did I come here for Hugh Jackson? Am I here for Grambling the brand? And I think that him staying and him being a part of the search for the next coach answers that question. He's here for Grambling the brand. But once again, that's only for us on the outside looking in. Those who have no inside information on the way that Crawley thinks, or maybe the conversation that he's had with the athletic department or the AD. Like, we didn't have those ears in on those conversations. But you know who else didn't have an ear in on those conversations? The future head coach. So I think that the future head coach will probably step in, especially if you're going to go for an offensive mind. He's probably going to step in and say, oh, okay, I got Myles Crawley. Every coach who is considering Grambling State right now knows that they have Myles Crawley. And because he's a part of that committee, I can say that with a lot of confidence. If he wasn't a part of the committee, which wouldn't have batted an eye, a lot of times student athletes, I don't see a part of these committees. But because he is, now everybody knows exactly where he stands. There's no confusion. And I would think that would make you more of an attractive spot for coaches, because Myles Crawley is an excellent player. And now that I know I have Myles Crawley on my side, I feel like I have a base level to start with and I can grow from there. At least I got my quarterback. The other part of it is, I know this isn't a recruiting tool, but it surely would help recruitment if I was a high school athlete, if I was somebody in the portal. To me, putting both Crawley and Carter on this committee, it shows me how much you value your student athlete's opinion. Not every school is going to do that. Now, of course, you would like to go to somewhere with stability, but imagine being in this situation. I don't want to name any schools because I don't know their particulars and how they're looking for their coach. So let's just say Timbuktu University had a coaching vacancy, and we're like, okay, we don't know who's going to be here. We would like for you to be here, but then the students aren't being heard on that. The student athletes aren't being heard. Typical, okay, cool, whatever. I'll still consider it. But then you go to another place like Grambling, and where the student athletes and their voices are being heard, that's a bonus, almost like extra credit, because it's normal for you not to hear these student athletes. They're almost treating Crawley like a superstar quarterback on the NFL level, in the sense that, hey, we're allowing you to be in the room. We're allowing you to be a part of this committee. We're allowing you to have a voice on who the next head coach is. Maybe he can vet the new head coach. Hey, this system doesn't really work for me. I don't think that maximizes my potential. Myles Crawley having a seat at the table doesn't mean that he makes decisions. It doesn't mean that he calls the shots. But what it does mean is he gets to dial a number. What it does mean is he gets to sit in on those conversations. He gets to give his opinion. And to me, that's valuable. That's valuable. To me, that is placing a player in a level of importance that other athletes are going to look at and say, we like the way you handle business. That's my personal opinion on it. Now, as we move forward, I have some more personal opinions. For example, I don't really like Devin Smith transferring from North Carolina Central. It felt premature, and quite frankly, it caught me off guard. And I'll break down all three of those things as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn, and LinkedIn Jobs is the number one place for all of my small business owners. If you are a small business owner who has not been on LinkedIn Jobs yet has a vacancy in their company, I don't know what you're doing. I feel like you're wasting your time. Do you not want to fill the vacancy with the right person? Do you not want to find somebody who's a good chemistry fit for you? See, I was on Instagram today, and I was scrolling through, and I was looking up, it was a review about a movie, and they talked about the chemistry between two actors and how that really made the film grow. Your business is no different. Your business is no different. Sometimes you need the right chemistry, the right pieces to come together. And there's 800 million people on LinkedIn on a daily basis. You can't tell me you can't find the right chemistry in that department. So now it's on you. Go to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Use the purple hashtag hiring frame. Post your job for free and find the right fit for yourself. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked on HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. Remember, we still have our 24/7 national live stream. Doesn't matter if it's 4 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the evening. You can go check out a Locked on Sports Today podcast right now. All you have to do is put in Locked on Sports Today. Now, let's look at North Carolina Central. This is a part of a two-part conversation. And we'll start off with Devin Smith himself. A little bit of an isolation on the player because Devin Smith isn't the only North Carolina Central Eagle to enter the portal, but he was one that really caught me off guard. And I think that's because of the conversation I just had about him. I just came on here and big upped him. I just came on here and told you how I was impressed with what he was able to do this year, specifically in that playoff game against Richmond. I was on here telling you about how these are money type games where you can elevate your profile. But when I was speaking about Devin Smith and what he did to elevate his profile, I was looking to the spring of 2025. I was looking towards the fall of 2024. I was looking at him being able to capitalize on the momentum he did in 2023 in his senior year at North Carolina Central, and then be able to take the momentum of your junior year and senior year and then elevate your draft profile in 2025. That's what I was looking at. And I'll be honest with you, now that he's entered the transfer portal and he might be leaving North Carolina Central, this just caught me so off guard, and I don't think it's the right call. I don't think it's the right call. Now, for the record, I believe that he's immensely talented, and I really am not a fan of criticizing these guys' decisions to enter the transfer portal. But at the same time, I'm a journalist. At the same time, I come on here and I'm paid to give my opinions on these situations. It ain't all happy. It ain't all peaches and cream, right? So to me, I think that he's talented, but I don't know if he had accomplished enough to put himself in the right situation when he transfers. I don't like transferring from an HBCU to another FCS school. It's important to remember that HBCUs are FCS schools in the football department. A lot of times we kind of separate them because, you know, the goal is a celebration bowl. So in a way, it is kind of separate. It's isolated in itself. But it's important to remember you are still an FCS football player. I don't believe in transferring to another FCS because you have those same uphill battles. Now, maybe each school has its different problems, but that's true for HBCUs. We know every school is not cookie cutter. I can't put Richmond and North Carolina Central in the same ball, but I don't know what is what at each school. Is different, right? But overall, one thing I can say is cookie cutter is that FCS schools have a problem getting players drafted the same way HBCUs do, because it's not an HBCU problem. It's an FCS problem. It's a smaller school problem. That's what that is. So I'm not really a fan of transferring from an HBCU to another FCS school because it just feels lateral to me, right? So I'm only aiming for FBS. Now, if there's a personal issue or something like that, take that out the equation. But if we're strictly keeping it on the field, no, I'm only going for an FBS transfer. And the way to properly set yourself up for an HBCU to FBS transfer is you have to be extremely decorated at the FCS level. You have to be extremely decorated. Otherwise, I don't believe that they prioritize you. It's not about being talented enough. It's about being accomplished enough. It's not about how good are you. It's about how good of a situation are you going to be put in. Because if you're Devin Smith, from my point of view, yeah, you got talent. I came on here the other day and talked about it. So I ain't finna turn around because he left. But it's the fact of, okay, what did you accomplish while at Central to maybe you go to a UNC and now they treat you like a priority? Because when you're not treated like a priority and you only have 1 year of eligibility, that's a big gamble to me. That's a big gamble. Now, if you have 2-3 years of eligibility, maybe you can risk having to sit a year. Because you got to remember, man, when you walk into these situations, you're not the only guy that they're recruiting. So now you got to go on the priority list. And if I only got a year, yeah, I believe in myself, but I'm not finna sit here and try to beat out 3 guys. I'm not trying to, if I already know I'm 4 on the depth chart, I'm not trying to say I'm good enough to beat these guys. Yeah, I might be, but that's just a big gamble. I'm just going to stick it where I'm at and be able to not have to fight pre-existing beliefs. Because pre-existing beliefs can be something for real. At the end of the day, if I already feel like that person is better, if I already have that person prioritized, if I'm already more excited about this player, you probably had to be the same times two, right? You got to be 2 times better than that player in practice on a consistent basis because you fighting an uphill battle. That's why I'm not a big fan unless you've done something special. It's not about how special you are; it's about how special your accomplishment or how special your season was. See, I think that Jawan Howe, he had a special season. It felt like, ooh, whoa, as a true freshman, it made sense if he were to take that South Carolina offer without knowing the University of South Carolina's running back situation. That makes sense to me. I felt like Devin Smith had properly positioned himself to grow as a senior, but I didn't feel like he had properly positioned himself to jump off on the FBS level. Of course, I'm going to wish him the best because I think BJ Davis jumped off the screen for me from South Carolina State a year ago. He kind of jumped off the screen. So when he went to East Carolina, I was like, okay. And you know what? He made plays at East Carolina. I'm always going to wish Devin Smith the best. I'm always going to wish all of our talent the best because I believe in that talent. And to me, when you believe in that talent and you genuinely believe in that talent, you don't sit around and say they can't do it here. You don't say things like they're going to get lost in the shuffle here. For me, when you genuinely believe in that talent, you believe that they can shine through. I just don't know if the opportunity will be given to him. And I think that comes off of accomplishments. So he's not alone. He's not alone. Let me read some of these other guys. You got Khalil Baker, Jason Chambers, Torricelli Simpkins. And you know what? Despite all of these names that North Carolina Central will be without next year, most likely due to the transfer portal, I believe they have the right base to be able to get through it, and I'll explore that base as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and FanDuel is the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, Green Bay versus Tennessee Green Bay versus New York was last night. The Dolphins versus Tennessee was last night. Were you able to make money on either one of those things? Right? Because FanDuel is there for you. You have the over-unders. You have the MVP odds. Brock Purdy. Dak Prescott went crazy this week, and I think he really did a lot for his MVP stock on Sunday versus the Eagles. Who do you think is going to win? Whoever you just said in your mind, go to FanDuel, put some money down on it right now. And if you win a $5 money line bet, you'll get $150 back in bonus bets. So you know what you're talking about. You become a winner on your first time. This is for new customers. You become a winner, and now we take that and we give you another W on top of it. But you have to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. And if you win on any $5 money line bet, you get $150 back in bonus bets. So FanDuel, make every moment more. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, thank you for making this your first listen of the day, every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. We've looked at Devin Smith. I've given you the list of names. Khalil Baker. That's a big blow. Khalil Baker, Jason Chambers, Torricelli Simpkins, right? And then also Devin Smith. This is a big deal. However, I think that North Carolina Central has the base to be able to get through this. Of course, you're going to have to recruit at that position. You're going to have to recruit offensive linemen. You're going to have to recruit defensive backs. You're going to have to recruit wide receivers. You're going to have to fill those holes. I can't say you're going to be terrible. If you fill those holes with bad talent, it doesn't matter about this base that I'm about to go through. It doesn't matter at all because you're not going to be good. You're not going to be good. So you have to recruit some quality talent there. You can't have bums in those positions. There's too many positions to have bums at each of them. But if you can recruit service level players, meaning they can play, right? They're good enough. If you can recruit them, I think you have the base to be a really good team. If you recruit above average talent, I think that you could be a championship contender yet again. But what is this base? This base that makes me say I feel okay. It's a quarterback running back tandem. Walker Harris, Jamari Taylor. Those 2 names make me feel okay. See, you have a quarterback that you believe in, and you have a running back who I know is talented. And if both of those guys can hit in expanded roles, North Carolina Central is looking at the ability to still be competitive. If Walker Harris is who they think he is, if Jamari Taylor is who I've seen him be, and with a larger role, he is a greater version of that. Despite some of these transfer portal departures, I still think that North Carolina Central can make some noise. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but I keep hearing that Walker Harris is viewed as a 1B. They just had Davius Richards, so he couldn't play. But Walker Harris is believed in. And if Walker Harris is what Coach Oliver thinks he is, well, now you're going to have a quarterback. Because imagine you're going through all of these departures and you have Davius Richards there. You probably feel pretty good because you know you have a quarterback. You know at the most important position, you're solid. I'm not saying that Walker Harris is Davius Richards, but if you feel good about Richard, take it down a notch and a half, maybe 2 notches, because this guy is so unproven. And I have to say things like feel like, because I know that Walker Harris played against Mississippi Valley State, but for me, that's not enough. For me, going against one of the worst teams, I'm just gonna be honest with you, Mississippi Valley State is not a good team. Going against one of the worst teams in Black college football and having a good day, it shows that you're competent. It's impressive. Let me not do that. I think that might be a little too dismissive. I'm not overly impressed, but it did show me the potential. Walker Harris's performance against Mississippi Valley State, his ability to air it out. I think he might have had 5 touchdowns in that game. I think he might have had over, if not, or close to, if not over 300 yards in that game. It showed me why Trey Oliver speaks highly of him. It shows me why Trey Oliver has confidence in him. It showed me those things. However, I need to see it against better teams. And then also I need to see it over a full season. There was no film on you. Even if I do feel like Mississippi Valley State is not a good football team, that only got exaggerated because of the lack of film that Walker Harris had on file. Nobody knew what he was really about, right? So now we've seen him play a full game, but we're going to start seeing him play in a season. And that's what I need to see. Then you look at Jamari Taylor. I always felt the need to say, hey, it's a 1-2 punch with Richard and Collier. But at the same time, don't forget about Taylor because he's good. It might really be a 1-2 punch, but I'm not mad about the 3. I'm really not mad about it because I've seen Jamari Taylor run. I think he's a strong runner. I think he's an explosive runner. I enjoy to watch him play football. I think that 4 is going to have a really good senior year. And that's kind of the thing about this tandem. Walker Harris and Jamari Taylor are both looking to step into bigger roles, but they're both stepping into their senior year. So with them stepping into their senior year, you need to make sure you have guys around them because it's not as if, okay, cool, they're sophomores right now going into their junior year, and we can see what they're going to be like, and then we'll have a year to develop certain people. You need that offensive line to be good. You need to be able to protect your quarterback. You need to be able to run the ball. That offensive line has to have it together, right? So I know you lost an offensive lineman last year or going into 2023. Now you're losing another one going into 2024. But it's going to be important to do that. You're going to want Walker Harris to have talent to throw to. You're going to want them to be able to put a defense together that can stop people. I didn't think that the defense was as good this year as I thought it was last year. And it wasn't great, but I thought that they just felt more susceptible. Maybe they got exploited more because I still remember them getting exploited against good offenses in 2023. But it just felt more frequently. I don't know. Maybe they ran into more quality offenses. That would have to be something I really studied 2 years worth of content for, and I haven't done that right now, right? So, and a little bit more in depth. I can't just look here and there, but regardless, you're gonna have to be able to surround them with talent because this is only 1 year. Walker Harris, senior year. Jamari Taylor, senior year. You get 1 year with this team that has you feeling so good. So you'll also have to recruit some depth behind them so that you're not going into a quarterback situation where you feel unsure. I'm excited, though. They're having a lot of departures, but I think that base, that running back, quarterback tandem, that base there is enough for me to feel good about North Carolina Central going into 2024, that they won't just completely fall off a cliff. But I have 8 months to wait and see. It's the worst part about football ending is I start that clock. I'm already looking forward to it, and we still have a game coming up on Saturday. Speaking of which, on tomorrow's episode, we'll be looking at Howard's X Factor, and I'll give you a little bit of a hint. It's the same X Factor they've had all year long, but that's the only hint I give you. You're going to have to come back tomorrow. So in the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.